In this video, I want to provide you with a step-by-step tutorial for a dashboard that I created last year. This dashboard is like a summary of all kinds of tutorials that I did in the past, like using error bars, these are the little trees, changing the color of a dashboard dynamically, having a toggle button without bookmarks. And I combined all of that to create a dashboard. And then I added some snow, some changing images, and I thought this is quite nice to share. But because there's so much going on in this dashboard, it took me a while to actually create this tutorial. But I thought this is a nice tutorial for people that are a little bit more advanced in Power BI and want to combine all kinds of visual possibilities. And to make this a little bit easier, I will actually provide you with the step-by-step Power BI file and the solution. You can download that on my website. I will put the link in the description. Also on my website, I have the same information as in this video written down step by step. So like I said, we will do this step by step, and let's go into Power BI. You see the result here, and you see this is the dashboard where we can switch between day and night. You can see the little head changes, also the snow changes, and the trees, you see they're light green during day and they get dark green during the night. So these are all the things we are going to create. If you wonder what's the data below, let's go to the date table. This is a table where I have data to visualize, like an order date and sales. I have a date table, a very minimal date table. And image maybe seems a little bit vague, but we have like, again, the option in there. This will be linked to our toggle button. I want to switch between day and night. Here I have an icon of a sun and a moon. I will show you when we go to that section how you can create that. I have the background image, the logo, and the snow that I want to use. These link to my website. You can, of course, replace that with links that you have. And we have color and we have 0. This will be important for the error bars, so we get back to that later. So you already see everything in this data references something that we are looking at. Everything has a purpose. So how can we create this? The first thing we're going to do is we want to create the background. And now you may wonder, how do we do that? The first thing I do is I go and insert a shape. In this case, a rounded rectangle. And if I click on that and I go to the format pane, you can see that here, the format pane, you see rounded rectangle corner radius is 5%. And if you go to fill and border, you see I selected conditional formatting. So I did not select a fixed background. Why? At the moment, we don't have any toggle button that switches between anything, but we will add that later on. And I have images where we have the option 1 or 2. 1 is day, 2 is night. So what I do with the conditional formatting is I click on my shape and I go to fill conditional formatting. I say I want it to be based, in this case, on rules. You could also do this with field value in a DAX measure. I only have 2 options here. I will base it on rules. And I say if the value is 2, that's night, I want some dark blue. And if the value is 1, that's our day, I want it to be light blue. If you click on OK, you see it's the default value of Power BI, the blue that Power BI always shows. That's because we don't have this toggle button at the moment. So we can't switch. So we get the default. And now I also want 2 images. I will put them here. I host these images on my website. One is for day and one is for night. If you go back, I can show you. This is like a dark background with some snow. And here we have some light background with some snow. If you wonder how did you get these images, I asked an AI tool to create both of these images for me because I had an idea that I wanted a day and a night image. They should look quite similar and I wanted to place the trees in there. So I used artificial intelligence to use this. But you could replace this with any image you have because you can see in our table, the images, background image, I have day and night, but you could put in any link you want. You would need to go to transform data and transform or change the value for this. How you get that image in there is you go to insert and then you insert the image. You can click there. And then I just drag and drop the background image in there that we have from our table. So if I go to my images table, we have the background image. I drag and drop that in there, and you see it also says first background image. This is what PowerBI does standard, because at the moment we could also say last, then we would see the night one. And how does PowerBI know which one to choose? Again, this will work once we have the toggle button, because once we have that toggle button, going back to the table here, if someone clicks on the sun, it's option 1, and that makes the first image to be shown day. And if someone clicks on the moon, the option that is selected is 2, which will show you the night image. So that's actually how that works. That's why we have that button. So it's all connected with each other. And I know that can be very confusing, especially if you look at this for the first time. So I have a full video, I think it's like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, about dynamically changing colors. It's the same way you can dynamically change these images. If you struggle with understanding this, I can really recommend to have a look at that video, because that's like the base information to understand what I'm doing here a little bit better. I will put the link in the description. So now what we have done is we added a background. We went to the format pane and we told PowerBI, depending on the toggle button and the option that is then selected, we have different colors. And then we added 2 images. And the images, show you something. You can choose different styles. So I say select from data, because I have the URL in my data. You could upload an image, but then it's pretty static. What I want to do is change it depending on what someone clicks on. And that's why I choose select from data, where here I have day and night. I could also have different or more values there and have more images. So the next step is I want to create the toggle button without bookmarks, and I want to create this effect where I click on the moon and we will see the darker background, and I click on the sun and I will see the lighter background and a different image. So how do we create the toggle button? The first thing is we add a shape, and this shape is the pill shape. If we go to the format pane, I will show you. The shape is pill. And I have a fill. It's a little bit gray, but I made it pretty transparent. It's just a little bit different from the background. And I gave it a darker border. This is not doing anything itself. And the second step is I added a button slicer. If I click on it, it has the value option button. If you go to our table and we see option button, you see the sun and the moon here. Now, a tip. If you want a different icon, go to transform data, go to images, then applied step source, and then you click, for example, on option button on the first one, and you press the Windows and the dot on your keyboard. And then you get an overview of all kinds of icons that you can use. For example, if I search for sun, we could choose this, we could choose a sunflower or a nice picture. There are some options there. And then you can just add that and it will be added, and it looks a little bit strange in this view, but it will be the right one in PowerBI. And then you say, okay, close and apply. So we have these buttons. When you do that, I will show you option button. It will not look as nice as it looks at the moment, because if you have like the standard formatting turned on, it will be like this. What we need to do is first I go to size and style and I say I don't want the background, I don't want the title, multi-button layout. What do I want? I want 1 row and 2 columns. At the moment we only see the sun because our slicer influences the second slicer. What I need to do is I click on my first slicer here, then I go on format, and then I click on this edit interactions, I click on my filter, and then I say it shouldn't have an effect. You see, if it has an effect, we only see the first one, and otherwise we see both. But still it doesn't look entirely like the example. So what I'm going to do now is we can, first of all, make the callout value bigger. And even if there's an icon, you can change that like this. I want them in the middle. I want them to be smaller, like this. Now we see there's some stuff happening. If we go to buttons, I say first padding. I want this to be narrow or even custom, and I put this on 0 everywhere because I want them to be close to each other, and I turn the background and the border off. So now you get the sun and the moon, and they look pretty accurate by now. These are a little bit bigger than the ones I had, so I think I had them font size 23. So then you have these buttons. Let's remove that one. And now if you click on these buttons, actually they will work already if you did step 1, creating the background, and you did the conditional formatting where you said option 1 or option 2, because we already selected that. And also the image, because these images, they refer to the table. So this actually already works by just implementing this button slicer, which is awesome. I mean, this works very fast. So now we're going to add the trees, and I also put some information for you there, how to create them. This is a little workaround to create these trees, and it all starts actually with a column chart. I make a copy of this and I make this a column chart. And this column chart that I have here, I go to properties, reset all settings to default. So now this is how this column chart looks like. When you just drag and drop, we have the sum of sales, we have the month name short, and that's the information. So you see this on the x-axis and the y-axis. So now you may wonder, how do I get from this to that? Easy. Oh, well, not easy, a few steps, but I will show you. What we're going to do is first we go to the format pane. Let's put this here. And I go to columns, and there I see I can change the color. And here I also want to use conditional formatting. We can do the same approach as before, that we go to say it's rule-based and options. Option is 1 or 2. What we also can do, and that's what I showed you in the data, I prepared that, we can also base it on a field value that I put in here. This is a hex code. So I will first show you with the hex code. We would say conditional formatting, field value, and then I go to images, and there I named it color. Now if I put this here and I switch between day and night, you see light green and dark green. Now if you want to do this rule-based, let's remove that. Let's make it rule-based because we did the other one also rule-based, but then you at least know how it works. We go to option, sum, 1 and 2. 1 is day, and we want this to be very nice and bright trees. And 2 is night, so they are a little darker, something like that. Let's try that. So then you see day, light, night, dark. Now, how do we change this to these trees? What we're going to do is we actually now make this a line. So I click on my visual, it's a clustered column chart, and now I make this a line chart by clicking on the line, and now it looks like this. So this still does not look like the trees, but you see we have a line and markers. And now the first thing that I want to do is I go to the markers, these round thingies, and I say show for all categories, and the shape I want to be this triangle. And then I make this a little bit bigger. Let's say we make this a 12. Oh, and here we can also add a border, so I could have skipped that before. Let's add a little border for our tree. And now you see there's some similarity here, but not entirely what we want. Next thing we do is we actually hide the line. And now we have these little triangles, and now we want the rest of the tree. What we're going to do is we scroll down to error bars, and the first thing you do is enable them, because if they're not enabled you will see nothing even if you drag and drop information in there. And the lower bound is this column, which is 0, because I wanted to start at 0. So I put in lower bound 0, and the upper bound is sales, because that's also our triangle. It's sales. Let's put that in there. And now we turn the markers for the error bars off, because otherwise we get this baseline here. I will turn it off. And the bar itself, we can also give that a border. In my example, I also did that. Something like that. And at the moment, you can't really see this very good. We need to disable some stuff like the title. If I go to size and style, the background, and I disabled the values in the title of the y-axis. I mean, this is not your finance dashboard. This is just to play around. And on the x-axis, I also removed that and I made this white. So this looks pretty similar. It shows some different colors. Need to arrange that, but you see, we recreated that. And now if I would switch to day, you see the light trees. And now I've seen that the color that I've chosen is a little bit too light. So what you can do then is go back to clustered column chart, and here I do color, and I just simply change that. You can do that. Change it to something else, and then back to line, and you will get your line again. Now at the bottom, you see I chose the white text because at night that worked fine, but during day it's almost unreadable. We can only see it kind of because the other visual is in the back. What you can do for the x-axis is also, instead of choosing color, we can go to conditional formatting again, make it rule-based, search for our option, and same here. If the number is 1, so day, I want this to be white, and if it is 2, I want this to be black. Now, let's see what happens. If we change that, it changes accordingly. So then you actually already created your trees. I mean, this is like amazing progress. So let's go to the last step. We are almost there, where you can actually make it snow and have a logo that also changes. In my case, it's my logo, the porcupine, that changes the head and the snow. How do we do that? Both the snow and my logo are also in the table. You can see logo and snow, and the snow is a GIF, so it's an animated picture. Now, if you wonder where do you get that snow, when I first posted this, I got a lot of questions about where can I get snow. If you search in a search engine for snow, GIF, and transparent background, you will already find a lot. And if you don't have a place where you can post your own image, you can also, instead of choosing the URL, of course, choose one snow image and then let it snow the same if it's day or night. I chose 2 because the snow is different at day and at night in my dashboard, but it could, of course, be just one choice. Now, like I told you, the snow is a GIF, and what I did is you go to Insert, Image, and there you say Image, select from data, and in my case, it's this column, snow. And then depending on what's selected in the toggle button, we will get different snow. And you see, now that I click on the snow, it actually goes through my whole dashboard. If I click somewhere else, you see it's hidden. How do I do this? Well, this is basically a workaround. I just put in some shapes here and here, so you don't see snow. If I would remove this shape, it would still snow. But I only wanted it to snow in the image, so I put shapes with the same color in there. How do I make sure they have the same color? Again, I go to Shape Style, Fill, and have conditional formatting, just like in step 1 for our background image. The same for the image. I added the image, I selected from the data, first logo, and it is selected. So while this maybe seems the most difficult part, it's the easiest because it's really just getting the image in and referring to an image. And then again, because we already have that toggle button, everything works together. So that button is like 90% of the magic of this report, actually. So I'm very curious what you think about this tutorial. Like I said, you can download the file on my website. You can see a step-by-step manual on my website if this was too fast. I'm really curious about what you create, what you think about this, if you would do it differently. Put it in the comments. Thank you for watching this, and let me know how you like it.